my name is Cindy Ma, and I am the founder of She Living, and this studio, She Studio. We built this about 3 years ago. I felt that the feminine voice really needed to be in the media, and I didn't see that anywhere. We decided to build this production studio because most video production studios are very heavy and they feel very masculine, if you will. So we really wanted to build this and dedicate it to Mother Earth and to the goddess. So this is a particular container for the feminine. So I'm really excited to have Lama Tsultrim here with us tonight. Thank you all also for this. This tells me and affirms that really this kind of container is needed and hopefully honored. Thank you for the men who are here in this room also to join us in opening their hearts to welcome this feminine rising. So I'll likely, I may repeat myself a little bit when we have the webinar on. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, again, we are broadcasting and filming and really wanting to get out the voices of women of wisdom on behalf of Spirit, Health, and Earth. So our She stands for Spirit, Health, and Earth, to give Mother Nature a voice, and also just to acknowledge that I think this is, Lama Tsultrim would agree, that this movement, if you would call it such, is spirit and grounded in the earth, with us humans embodying this energy. I think this is where we're connecting spirit with the earth. And so I just feel like it's very aligned with the message that Lama Tsultrim is bringing through, as well as what she's built for her retreat center, Mondal in Colorado. So how are we on time? Is it 7:30? It's 7:29. Okay. Can we please welcome Lama Tsultrim? Hello. Okay, hi everyone. To those of you joining us on the webinar, welcome to She Living. This is a broadcast from She Studio in Berkeley. We are a film studio and media company dedicated to amplifying the voice, the feminine voice, on behalf of Spirit, Health, and Earth. And tonight we are here with Lama Tsultrim and talking about her latest book, Wisdom Rising. And I just want to first acknowledge everyone who is here tonight in this space, in this container, and those of you that are watching from the webinar or even potentially on Facebook Live, as really like an exciting sort of celebratory circle, I would say, in just the evidence of this beautiful manifestation of the feminine movement. So thank you all for joining us. Your presence here is very much honored and appreciated. Okay, so a lot of the conversations that we talk about here at She, some of the people are, I guess all of us are really feeling the the external pressures and perhaps internal transformations that we're making. I wrote in our intro that we are really challenged with taking the old, transforming that into wisdom, and birthing this new earth, or the new reality that a lot of people, I think, have been called to. Like it or not, you're all here, you're on this call for a reason, and I think if you would speak a little bit to how you came to offer this book and what's been coming to you relevant to these times now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's take a moment and generate our motivation for being here tonight, to have the motivation to benefit all beings. Just pause in ourselves for a moment. We're probably all coming off the throughway and ready to rest for a moment and connect with our genuine motivation of bodhicitta, the intention to be here together for the benefit of all beings. Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. This is amazing that you had this idea and you're doing it.
Thank you.
It's huge. And I know these things, you know.
When you get called, you just have to act on it.
And it's not that easy either.
No.
So I'm really honoring that you're doing this and you've had this intention. And I didn't know what the she stood for before tonight. I mean, I knew it was the feminine, but spirit, what spirit?
Spirit, health, earth.
And earth, so Wisdom Rising really came out of work that I've been doing for probably almost 40 years. And I wrote Women of Wisdom, came out in 1984. And it came out of my need for the stories of women in the Tibetan tradition, which is what I practice. I was a nun, I was a Tibetan Buddhist nun, and then I went from that to being a mother. And I had 4 children. The last 2 were twins, and they were born in 1980, the twins, and in June. They were born in March, and in June 1980, there was a boy and a girl, and my daughter passed away from sudden infant death. Every mother's worst nightmare of, you're going to wake up and your baby's not breathing anymore, because the breath is uneven in the beginning. So, in a way, it's interesting. It was a girl. It was a boy and a girl. They were both seemingly healthy, and she didn't survive. And that put me into I don't know what you call it, a process, a situation, search, and I needed the stories of women. The Buddha's story wasn't helping me. He went out the window in the middle of the night and left his wife and child. Right? That's what he did. He seems to have been forgiven over time. But anyway, he did that. And Milarepa renounced the world, went into the cave, and so on. So my tradition didn't have anything to offer me in that moment. And so I looked for the stories of women and found 6 stories of women. And then also wrote my story of, going from being a nun to being a mother, and then Kiara's death, and this need for the feminine that came out of that. And so that's how it began. And that was a long time ago. That was 1980. She died. And I never let it go, the feminine. Mm-hmm. It was a calling, I think, in a way.
Yes.
Indirectly, it wasn't something I planned. And, honestly, I'd never been sort of even thinking about that particularly when I was a nun. But her death really, somehow I felt this lack in my Buddhist world of anything that would help me in that moment. And I remember there was somebody that came up to me after she died, and they said, "You shouldn't be attached." Super unhelpful. Really unhelpful comment. And since then I've thought a lot about this idea of attachment is bad and non-attachment is good and so on. And I really think it's a misunderstanding of what we need. I think we need connection, and that's different than grasping and clinging at that level of the mind grasping. But we need connection, and that's really what love. It's what makes it all happen.
Yes, your story is so unique, and I think that people are really drawn and connected because you are a mother, also because you are like a householder in a way.
Not in a way. Actually.
But you're not a nun who went to the cave necessarily, lived in the monastery, but you are in this world also, and I think that many people can benefit from your wisdom and are connected to you as a woman. You also, in the book, probably in both of the books, but in this one, Wisdom Rising, also, I wonder, you speak about also the feminine, the sacred feminine, maybe it's in Women of Wisdom. You quoted Starhawk also, and the difference in how the Buddhists look at suffering versus how some of the traditional feminine, pagan, if you will, really look at the wonder and the glory, and maybe something was initiated.
And the cycle also.
Yeah, the cycle. I think also when you became a mother, I mean, I know for me when I became a mother, that was a big initiation into something that I didn't, that there wasn't a construct for.
Yeah.
So maybe could you speak a little bit to that, the
shift to being a mother?
The Buddhist philosophy of suffering versus what you have found in your life, whether it's meant to be, I mean, even though of course we experience these hardships, whether you have found kind of the magic of
life,
being on this planet, yes, and the kind of the tantra aspect of.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. The idea, what the Buddha said was that all conditioned existence is suffering. He didn't say that all life is suffering, he said conditioned existence. So that means that anything that's subject to conditions, which means our bodies, it's conditions, birth and death, that's subject to suffering. But he didn't talk about unconditioned existence, and that, or he didn't say that was suffering. And so unconditioned existence are minds that are beyond conditioning, beyond the conditioned. That state is not subject to suffering. It's beyond suffering. And that state is always accessible. It's just like that far away. I met a woman once who came out of a 12-year retreat. Yeah, she had gone in. She was a motorcycle woman, or I don't know what you call that, but you know, she's kind of wild woman. And she'd gone into a 12-year retreat under His Holiness Karmapa in Woodstock, New York. And she came out, and I met her shortly after, and I was like really interested in what she was going to say after 12 years in retreat. And that's what she said to me. She said, you know, it's just that far away. It's not like way down there, it's just that far away. And so I think that the tantric view is that our tantra actually means continuity. And it's a continuity, it's a luminous thread of continuity that runs through everything. And that luminous thread is our awakened nature. And our awakened nature is actually always present. It's present right here, right now. Even when we're in our worst, most obstructed states, that's still there. It's running under. It's running under everything. And it's more or less covered, depending on what our state is. And our practice is really a process of uncovering that. And so the tantric practice is the recognition of that continuity and the practices that uncover it, essentially.
Thank you. Can you say anything about women in particular, and if you have found the experience as a woman to be, I don't know, different, or are there teachings that are, because I have the perception that the teachings from the Buddha, there might be a difference, the way the masculine and the male form receive or work with energies that is different than women in their female bodies.
You do.
I do.
That's a big question. I mean, of course, if you're a woman, it's hard to know, you know, what it would be like not to be one.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you historically that the religions created by men for men, which are basically all our world religions, that they have a philosophy or a view of transcendence, where the divine is transcendent, and that we need to kind of get up and out somehow, whether it's to God or whether it's to nirvana or to Allah or whoever, wherever, but it's usually a masculine presence that's somewhere else. And therefore, in that kind of worldview, the feminine and nature are at the bottom. I want to read something from
Yes.
Is that okay? This is a quote that I use at the beginning of the introduction of Wisdom Rising. And it's a book that I've had for a long time. It's called The Feminine Face of God. And they say, if there's one thing we know from history, it is that patriarchal models of the spiritual have not been kind to women. Consciously or unconsciously, the constructs that begin with spirit as the highest and descend to matter as the lowest have traditionally relegated women and nature to the bottom of the scale. And so the fate, if you will, of women and nature have been parallel historically. When women have been abused, so has nature. In societies and religions where women are honored, so is nature, and vice versa. And so if we look at this situation now that we're in, and I think that was your question about now, right? Was, you know, we're in a situation where nature and women are being abused. And
it's been that way for a
Yeah.
long time.
and under the current administration, it's getting worse. So one of the sort of exciting and potential hidden potentials of our current situation is that it's waking us up.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that in the Women's March
Mm-hmm.
after the inauguration, right?
And we're seeing this here, and I'm seeing this because I was called, and we're all, I think, feeling that the rising wave, and and I think also after thousands of years of this patriarchy, you also reference in your book the witch burnings and the women that had been in power or who were speaking this have been repressed and have been worse than that, that this energy has kind of fallen underground. But what I'm feeling, I don't know if you're feeling, but obviously Wisdom Rising is feeling, and what we're hearing, and I hope that what we can create here is for women to step into, or the feminine to kind of come back and rise into that power. I think that these teachings are to help uncover how, I mean, this is a 1,000-year-old tradition also, right? Working with the Dakinis, so
More than 1,000 years.
thousands of years.
Yeah.
Were these also secret teachings at some time?
Mm-hmm.
They were.
Yeah.
For those reasons, would you say?
I think that Vajrayana and Tantra can easily be misused and misunderstood, which I think in a way we're seeing now with Neo-Tantra. That, you know, when you say Tantra now, people are like, sex! You know? And Tantra is, the way that's being understood is really misunderstanding of such a profound path. And so it was kept secret for that reason. Because it's very profound. It's really about transforming the encumbered emotions into wisdom, and also using the poisons as path. And so when that just the sexual piece is pulled out, I'm not saying that Neo-Tantra has no value and it's a terrible thing. I think it's not necessarily. I'm not against it, but I'm just saying that what Tantra, and Buddhist Tantra at least, which is what I know, is so much more than that. And that's very exciting that we have that. And so those teachings have been secret because they can be misinterpreted and misused. And at the same time, I think for me, the reason that I spoke pretty openly about the Mondala and the Dakinis and so on in the book is because these are urgent times. And we need to pull out the stops and use what we know. And I know something. And I believe this can actually be helpful, and I've seen it in the book. There's the practice of the Mandala of the 5 Dakinis, which would normally be secret. And I teach it, I talk about it, and I give it. I don't give certain levels of it, but I give a sort of outer level with seed syllables and so on, not mantras. Because I believe, and I've seen actually results of how effective and helpful this can be for the empowerment of women, empowerment, and that empowerment is absolutely essential for us not to get burnt out and drained in this current environment. We need practices that are going to empower us to be able to meet the hurricane level winds that are coming at us, quite literally, right? I mean, the level of wind and storms and fires and so on that are coming at us. What are we drawing from internally to work with that? And so the Mondal of the 5 Dakinis is a method for men and women. It's not unique. I mean, this isn't like for women only. I used to be in a club when I was a child. We called it the Plants and Animal Club, and there was a big sign in the door that said "No boys allowed," and you had to know like 6 kinds of ducks to get in. To get through the door. But anyway, this isn't a no boys allowed club. The boys need to get in there, because if they don't get it, it's not going to change. And so thanks to all the men who are here tonight, and it's for all of us, and it's the Dakini practice traditionally is done equally, if not more, by men than women. But I offered it here in this moment, and of course, this moment in terms of feeding of wisdom rising seems to become more and more relevant by the minute. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I knew it was relevant 2 years ago when I was writing it, and then it just keeps getting more and more relevant, and so. It's almost like the book has its own life. It's like the Dakinis are just like, okay, get out your keyboard, you know, we're going to tell you what to say, and we need this to be in the world right now. And so...
Was it like that for you? Was it like a transmission?
Not that easy. I mean, it wasn't channeled.
Yeah.
No, there's scholarship in it. There's 50 years actually I've been practicing now. 50 years of study and practice, and
can you explain for me and for all of us what you do talk about this in the book, but what is a Dakini? Is it, yes.
Mm-hmm. Can I read something?
Yes.
I think I say it better here.
You probably. There's a whole chapter on it, but.
Yeah. The Sanskrit word Dakini in Tibetan becomes khandro, which means sky dancer, literally she who moves through space. The Dakini is the most important manifestation of the feminine in Tibetan Buddhist teaching. She can appear as a human or as a deity, often portrayed as fierce, surrounded by flames, naked, dancing, with fangs and a lolling tongue, wearing bone ornaments. She holds a staff in the crook of her left elbow, representing her inner consort, her internal partner. And then I go on to describe a little more what she holds and so on. But there's this piece that I think expresses it. The Dakini is a messenger of spaciousness, a force of truth, presiding over the funeral of self-deception. Wherever we cling, she cuts. Whatever we think we can hide, even from ourselves, she reveals. The Dakini traditionally appears during transitions, moments between worlds, between life and death, in visions between sleep and waking, in cemeteries and charnel grounds. I talk after that in the book about how I was writing this book last year, and my first daughter was having her second child. And she's a mountain woman. Her summer job was guiding on Mount Rainier, where she climbed it 14 times. She's very strong. And she was 43, having her second child. And so I was writing this, which is a process of giving birth to write a book. Any of you ever tried to do it? It's really hard, right? Every time I do it, I'm like, never again. Kind of like having a baby. But anyway, I went to her labor, and she went into transition. And I was thinking, oh, transition. And Dakinis come at the moment of transition. Transition's the hardest part of labor. It's the final centimeters of the opening of the cervix. And I noticed how wild she got in transition, and how fierce. And, you know, she was really clear about what she wanted and didn't want. She was not polite either. And she was dancing, and she was moaning, and she was really wild. And afterwards I thought, that's it, that's the Dakini. It's that moment when a woman really takes her power, goes inside herself, and starts to burn, and to say what she wants and what she needs, and not put up with anything else. And so the Dakinis appear in times of transition. How many of you are in transition in your lives now? In some way, yeah. Somebody came in tonight and said, I'm in transition. I was like, we're going to talk about that. So transition offers an opportunity of not knowing what's next. And something has fallen away, but you don't know yet what's next. And that moment allows a different kind of knowing to come through. And you're not in that structure. You're not like, okay, now I'm doing this. It's an open moment. And there's a lot of potential creativity in that, and a lot of movement, and a lot of insecurity and unknowing. And that's when the Dakini appears. So I'm not surprised that many of you here tonight are in transition.
Well, and I think that we, as a collective humanity, are in that transition space as we have come upon the systems that are kind of breaking down now, that whatever we thought we knew is really dissolving on some levels as we go through this kind of caterpillar butterfly awakening that some of us believe we're in. That it's beautiful then to work with the mandala. So working with the mandala is a way to kind of self-guide.
It's funny that you're using that image of the butterfly and the cocoon, because it's something that, as I've been traveling around talking about the mandala, it's an image that's come to me. It's not in the book. I hadn't thought of it in the book, but as I was trying to explain, like, what is it really when you're in the mandala? What is happening? And really, when you go into the inner mandala, which is the Dakini mandala, what happens is that you enter, in a way, a very vulnerable state, a state of transformation where, everything kind of falls apart, like with the caterpillar, everything kind of falls apart. And so you need protection. You need a container for that process to take place within. And remember, the mandala is surrounded by fire. And over it, traditionally, is a rainbow tent. And that's the cocoon. That's the the sacred space of protection in which this process of transformation can take place.
Beautiful, thank you. Wow, what questions do I have? Let me look.
You're in the cocoon, you can't think of it.
Can you tell us, is there, I mean, aside from what we're experiencing in the outside world, is there Buddhist prophecy about these times? I mean, I don't know, the Kali Yugas, the actual, I think of the Tibetan Buddhism and many of the religions and spiritual practices that are kind of keeping the fires burning, or the love, or the tantra, the continuity of that, that has held us through all of the, thousands of years of changes. Is there something in the Buddhist script that relates to this time and what you just shared around? Obviously, this is the time for the Dakinis. These are serious times.
There's a couple of things that I could say about that. One is that they're in the Dal Tanjur, which is a very, very ancient tantra, Dzogchen Tantra. They did say that in this epoch, more women than men would reach the rainbow body. The rainbow body is when there's no corpse at the time of death, or there's a corpse but it dissolves into light. And in this part of the Dal Tanjur, it says the reason for this is because in order to reach the rainbow body, you need to be able to work with energy, and that women have a natural affinity to working with energy. So that's one thing. Another thing in terms of prophecies is from the Kalachakra prophecies of connected to Shambhala, that these are degenerate times, and that they will get to be more degenerate.
Wow.
And, yeah. And that then at a certain point, Maitreya will come, the future Buddha, and that Maitreya will be very beautiful, physically beautiful, very big and beautiful, and that people will be so degenerated by that point that just his physical beauty will attract them to him, and that he will teach basic morality, which will have degenerated then. Just good and bad, and harm and non-harm, and those kinds of teachings. But that this moment now is sort of the last gasp of Vajrayana teaching. And so it's, we see this, I mean, just in my lifetime, I've seen so many incredible masters like Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche, and Kalu Rinpoche, and Dujin Rinpoche, and my teacher Abu Rinpoche, and so on, that those teachers have come and gone. And so that we have these teachings now, and we have our teachers, and this moment is not to be missed, because it could easily disappear and just fade away. And so it's important to take advantage of what there is now.
And I think, the importance of the inner practice for us to all, as you said, be empowered.
Empowered.
Finding our kind of bliss, I think, has got to come from the inside. And I am kind of particularly really hopeful. Like, I have this image of everyone here, everyone out there, like being in that spaciousness and that in the emptiness, and knowing that from that place, like anything is possible, right? So if enough of us have the courage to go into that mystery or go into that vulnerability and either sit there and wait for instruction, or be at least have the courage to go into that space and hold that, maybe that we all become those luminous cells in the cocoon to allow, you know, something to emerge from there. I think that's the great opportunity that we have now.
I like that. Luminous cells in the cocoon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
This is wonderful. I'm glad I could meet you, and we'll be with Anil tomorrow.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
likewise.
Yeah.
And just to share, because we also feel it's so important to bring out the feminine voice, to speak on behalf of Mother Earth and also feminine wisdom. You can watch us or follow us or subscribe at our Facebook page, She Living, or at shelivingtv.com. We have interviews there. We are really offering this to build community and to, you know, it's not easy to start a media company when we don't have the backing of big advertisers. This is not about more consumerism and more advertising. So we do need your support. If you believe that the feminine voice needs to be amplified, we are here to provide that platform and to co-create that with you. So thank you.
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you
Nice
all.
to be with you.